Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're doing fantastic. In this video, I'm going to answer a very common question I get asked, which is how many cold calls does it take to actually win a client or actually establish yourself as a recruiter in a certain market? So cold calls is something that it's a taboo subject, and a lot of people say cold calling doesn't work. I know a lot of people that I coach and work with, they cold call, but then they find the emails more effective. So I just want to touch on some points on why cold calling does work, and it does work very well. So people that say cold calling doesn't work don't actually know how to cold call. And it's not just what you say on the phone, it's the element of when should you call back, who should you ask for, getting the experience down as, oh, they're trying to fob me off, or asking for the right person. All this comes down to experience. So if anyone says cold calling doesn't work, is a they just don't know how to do it, basically. So don't listen to them. Cold calling does work, and it works in many, many ways. So it's unheard of that you're going to pick up the phone, talk to a client, they're going to give you all the information, blah, blah, blah. They don't want to look up your company, just whoever calls gives them the business. There are clients like that. Actually, you don't want those clients because 10 people will call them and then they've got 30 agencies working on the roll within 2-3 days. So you don't really want that. You want something that's a bit tricky, hard to get hold of person, and you want to follow up. So I use certain metrics to help me with that. So an example, I usually build a list of clients I want to work with, and I don't blanketly call everyone. It's usually the top 100, let's say. And if you win one of those contracts, you're going to be in there with a big client, and you really call for information. So initially I call and say, and I'll get to the amount of times I call, etc., and how many I have to make. So let's say you get a very basic list of 100 top 100 companies in your sector. Chances are the top 20 usually have a big internal team or some brand around them, so you don't really get in there with them. The money's made at the sort of bottom end of that top 100, where they might have some niche roles. The beauty of these companies, they're always going to be recruiting. So what do? Let's say I call through the list of all 100. I would have had, ideally, I would have found out the person's name and I would ask for them. If you get through, it's just a courtesy call. Hello, Mr. Client, it's just a courtesy call. Just wondered if you are actually using agencies for this particular role I saw. And you have to know that role is pretty hard to fill, in a sense that, most internal teams, or there's not, if you post an advert, no one's going to apply. So what do you do then? You obviously go to market afterwards if they give you the job and you try and find a person. You don't want to shoot yourself in the foot in a really, really hard position. However, you just want to strike up a conversation. Depending on what they say to you, they might say, oh, Cads, we've got a PSL. That's fine. That's a natural follow off. Fine. I drop them an email afterwards and just say, thanks for taking my call. Even if they just blanketly say no, as long as they got your information, you don't want to come across desperate. Like, you don't want to email them and say, oh, please, if you change your mind, let me know. That's not the case. They would have given you the business. It's just, thank you for taking my call. I understand you get a lot of these calls. And if it changes, let me know. So it's not desperate. You're not soliciting business like, oh, you need that client. Yeah. And I naturally build that list. So I've got 100. Let's say, I don't know, a good number would be 30 of them you couldn't get through to, and another 30 just said no, for example. Yeah. I would keep that 30 and I would check in with them every month. So I would do that 30. So I cleanse my list. The ones I realized were a waste of time. Now I usually follow up 4 times and that's it. And then they go into an email campaign that will drip out every month. So you will build a better relationship on the phone. And that's the beauty of it. Email, anyone can send an email. Not everyone is going to call. So everyone in their head doesn't like cold calling. And I'm not a massive fan. I do enjoy it in some ways. So all these consultants are seeing, I get good on the email. Now, the other thing you need to mention is the people you're actually calling are not 20-year-olds, probably not 20 in their 20s. Yeah. So they grew up in a time where they can't be bothered with email. They'll rather call, talk to person, and it's immediate. So the people you're cold calling are actually people of that generation where they prefer calls as well. So if you're emailing HR people that are in their 20s, 30s, I know it doesn't apply to everyone, but this is something to keep in the back of your mind when you're actually cold calling. It is actually something that's relevant. If you're calling a director that's owned his business for 30 years, believe me, he does not want the email. He wants a call. Yeah, I'm interested or I'm not. That's it. It's nothing to do with, oh, it's that particular person, or it's their premise, or it's usually a generational thing as you go along. However, email works best in terms of winning business. So how many calls would it have to take? I think, or I've done data, this is going back in 2018, 19, where it was around 2,000 cold calls would get you a desk that would generate at least £10,000 per month. And that's all you'd need to do. So can you hit 2,000 cold calls? And that's 2,000 that includes follow-ups. That includes you not knowing the market, a very beginner thing. So if you want to break that down across 2, 3, 4 months, 6 months, you can do that. The quicker you do it, the better, because you're more relevant in the space. It's hard to break into industries when you cold call, simply because most people already have established. So you could be competing against a company in that area that's dominated it for the last 16 years. You're going to struggle to break into that just by a few cold calls, like 100, 200. You're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to get known. You have to outwork their whole team. Yeah, you can do that with email. You can do that with phone calls. It works all that way. It isn't the case of, oh, I've done cold calling, it didn't work. It's a process that has to build up. It's all marketing yourself. I realized that a long time ago, and it's not really just a case of you showing up on LinkedIn, getting an email from you and a cold call. You get known as that person. Soon enough, 2 years down the line, a year down the line, you actually start to get people to come to you, that actually call you back, or say, oh, they take your call because they know you, they've heard your name. And that's what, your business will be there, top of Google. People will come to you, candidates will know you. It's hard to break into something because it's so saturated. Cold calling is not as effective, is probably the best way to put it, as cold outreach on the emails. However, there's a 10%, 20% of the audience that will not look at emails, will not do business with someone that can't be bothered to call. The other thing is, a cold call is personalized. So you can only call one person at a time. You can email 10,000. I mean, there's not a day go by where I get a marketing email and I think that was specifically for me. Obviously, I know how emails work and the campaigns, but most people will be like, that's gone out to everyone on their database. How did they get my details? This is what they're probably thinking as well. So you going back and looking at a cold call, you're going to be well received if they want your business. So there's two parts to it. Cold calling from a recruiter, from a client's perspective, is probably the most annoying thing in the world if you don't need them. However, if you need them, it's a welcomed call. I'll take the call. How much do you charge? What do you do? Do you recruit for this specific market? And a lot of people give me stick for the niche sector and they don't listen, and I always bang on about pick a niche. The first question a new client will ask you is, what do you recruit for? Now, if you're looking at a physiotherapy company and that you say, I only recruit for physiotherapists, that's immediately they're going to give you the business. If you talk to a company and you say, oh, we recruit for everything, they're going to think, oh, these guys are everywhere. They don't know what they're doing. They're not an expert. They're just a generalist. And a specialist always makes more than a generalist, bottom line. So cold calling, just to sum up, 2,000 cold calls will get you there. It's not easy. It's not hard. Yeah. You can split it out to, I used to do 100 emails, 60 calls a day. However, I think a good market now, 20 targeted calls a day will do you good. Yeah. Probably 100 emails on top of that. The more emails, the better. But you shouldn't be in the perspective of, I have to just do loads of cold calls for the sake of doing it. Cad's told me to do 2,000. Let me just call anyone. Still target it. Do your research. Find out who the person is. Are those jobs hard to fill? If you do it like that, you probably don't have to make 2,000 cold calls. So watch all my other videos on how to source leads, how to find the correct person, my 2 to 8 rule. Look those up. I hope this video has been helpful. Cold calling does work and it will always work. I mean, in some sectors, some companies don't have phone lines, but that's an email job anyway. So I hope that helped. If you've got any questions, let me know. Take care.